I am Jada, 33 years old and a corporate attorney who silently built a commercial real estate empire while my husband climbed the medical ranks. I went to his hospital to surprise him with our daughter's 7th birthday cake. Instead, I stood outside his ajar office door and watched his 26-year-old assistant wrap her arms around his neck. When he whispered that he had to go home and play the role of the good father, I did not shed a single tear. I simply turned around and vanished with our child. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to burn down a toxic life to protect your peace. The 7th floor of the Atlanta Medical Center was a fortress of quiet privilege. As the newly appointed interim director, my husband Jamal commanded this entire wing. I walked down the thickly carpeted hallway, balancing a $300 custom fondant cake in my hands. It was a masterpiece of sugar and spun roses specifically designed for our daughter Zuri, who is turning 7 today. I had left my law firm early, navigating rush hour traffic just to surprise Jamal so we could ride home together, like the perfect successful couple everyone believed us to be. Jamal and I were supposed to be the absolute epitome of Black excellence. He was the brilliant hospital administrator on the verge of securing a permanent chief executive officer position, and I was his polished attorney wife. We hosted charity galas, smiled for the local magazines, and played our parts flawlessly. But as I approached his heavy mahogany double doors, I noticed they were slightly ajar. I was about to push the door open with my shoulder when a sound stopped me dead in my tracks. It was a soft, breathless giggle. It belonged to Chloe, his newly hired 26-year-old administrative assistant. I shifted my weight, peering quietly through the narrow gap between the door and the frame. The scene inside burned itself into my retinas with absolute clarity. Jamal was leaning back against his massive oak desk, his suit jacket discarded and his expensive silk tie loosened. Chloe stood directly between his legs, her arms draped intimately around his neck. Her hands were buried in his hair, playing with the short waves at the nape of his neck. I stood frozen on the other side of the heavy wood, the weight of the bakery box pressing heavily into my palms. My heart pounded against my ribs, but my breathing remained slow and deliberately controlled. A lesser woman might have dropped the cake, ruining the surprise and giving them the satisfaction of my immediate devastation. A more reactive wife might have pushed the door wide open, screaming and causing a scene that would require hospital security. I did none of those things. Years of navigating high-stakes corporate litigation had trained me to observe, gather evidence, and never show my hand until the trap was fully set and escape was impossible. Then Jamal spoke, and his words sliced through whatever remaining affection I held for the man I had married. "I will make it up to you tomorrow, baby," he whispered, pressing a kiss to Chloe's neck. "It is Zuri's birthday tonight. I have to go home and play the role of the good father." Play the role. The phrase echoed in my mind, bouncing off the polished walls of the hospital corridor. He was not rushing home because he loved his daughter or because missing her 7th birthday was unthinkable. He was rushing home because his permanent promotion was riding on a dinner we were hosting tonight for the hospital board of directors. I was supposed to be setting the formal dining table right now, preparing to smile and serve expensive wine to powerful executives to prove that Jamal was a stable, devoted family man. I was merely a prop in his career strategy, and our daughter was just a script he had to read from to get the applause he desperately craved. I did not gasp. I did not confront them. I silently pivoted on my heel and walked right back the way I came. The click of my heels on the tile floor was steady and rhythmic, a quiet drumbeat marching toward his absolute destruction. The drive from the hospital to Zuri's private academy was a blur of calculated decisions. My hands gripped the leather steering wheel of my SUV, but I felt completely detached from the betrayal. Jamal had always wildly underestimated me. He loved telling his colleagues that my corporate law career was just cute paperwork while he was out saving lives and securing a legacy. He had absolutely no idea that the paperwork I shuffled all day involved managing Vanguard Holdings, my private real estate company, that quietly owned half the commercial properties in our zip code, including the land beneath his precious hospital expansion. I pulled into the circular driveway of the academy 40 minutes before the final bell. The receptionist smiled warmly as I walked into the front office. Mrs. Williams, you are early, she noted happily, looking up from her monitor. I am taking Zuri out a bit ahead of schedule, I replied, keeping my voice bright and cheerful. Birthday surprise. Minutes later, Zuri came skipping down the hallway, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. Her face lit up with pure joy when she saw me holding the massive pink bakery box. I swept her into a tight hug, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. She was the only pure thing in this entire mess, and I was going to protect her from the fallout at all costs, regardless of who I had to crush in the process. Are we going home to see Daddy? She asked as I buckled her into the back seat of the SUV. Not just yet, sweetie, I told her, catching her eye in the rearview mirror and offering a reassuring smile. Daddy is very busy playing his roles today. We are going to have a special girls-only birthday adventure tonight. Zuri cheered, oblivious to the storm brewing just beneath my calm exterior. I merged onto the highway, but I did not head toward our sprawling suburban estate. Instead, I drove straight downtown, into the heart of the city, pulling up to the valet stand at the St. Regis Hotel. The valet rushed to open my door, taking my keys with a respectful nod. Inside the lavish marble lobby, I bypassed the regular check-in desk and walked straight to the VIP concierge. I did not use the joint account debit card Jamal monitored so closely to track my spending. I reached into my wallet and pulled out a solid black corporate card tied directly to Vanguard Holdings. I need the presidential suite, I told the concierge, sliding the heavy metal card across the polished stone counter. For the next 30 days. The concierge barely blinked, recognizing the weight and significance of the card. Right away, madam. 10 minutes later. Zuri and I were standing inside a $2,000 a night penthouse suite, overlooking the sprawling city skyline. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the empire I had quietly built, while Jamal was busy stroking his own ego. I set the birthday cake on the massive dining table and let Zuri open her first few presents while I walked out onto the private terrace to breathe the crisp evening air. I reached into my designer purse and pulled out my phone. I had turned off my location tracking the moment I left the hospital parking garage, preventing Jamal from seeing my movements. But I had deliberately left Zuri's school iPad connected to the cellular network just long enough for his family sharing app to ping the hotel lobby before I disabled that device too. As if on cue, my phone began to vibrate violently in my hand. The screen illuminated with Jamal's face. I watched it ring until it went to voicemail. It started ringing again immediately. I swiped down to view my notifications. The screen was a chaotic waterfall of panic. 47 missed calls, 15 voicemails, a string of text messages that shifted rapidly from annoyance to outright panic. Jada, where are you? Why is your location off? Zuri's school says you picked her up an hour ago. The caterers are here. The board members are arriving in 20 minutes. You need to answer your phone right now. I took a slow sip of the complimentary sparkling water I had poured from the minibar, watching the notifications roll in. Jamal was not worried about my safety or our daughter's whereabouts. He was terrified of losing face. His entire promotion depended on presenting a united, flawless family front to the conservative hospital board tonight. Without me and Zuri there to play our parts, he was standing in an empty house looking like a complete fraud. The final text dropped onto my screen, a desperate, angry demand that proved exactly who he really was. Where the hell are you? The hospital board is waiting at our house for the dinner. You are making me look like a fool. I did not reply. I locked the screen and slipped the phone back into my pocket, listening to the muffled sound of my daughter happily eating her birthday cake inside the suite. Jamal wanted to play the role of the good father. Now he could explain to his bosses why his wife and child had vanished on the most important night of his career. I am Aliyah, 33 years old, and a corporate attorney who silently built a commercial real estate empire while my husband climbed the medical ranks. I went to his hospital to surprise him with our daughter's birthday cake, but instead, I stood outside his office door and watched his 26-year-old assistant wrap her arms around his neck. When he whispered that he had to go home and play the role of the good father, I did not shed a single tear. I simply vanished with our child, right before the most important dinner party of his career. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to burn down a toxic life to protect your peace. I stare at the glowing screen of my phone as another aggressive text message from Jamal flashes across the display. He is demanding to know my exact coordinates. He is threatening consequences because the hospital board of directors is currently standing in the foyer of our custom-built suburban home, waiting for a dinner party that has no hostess and no birthday girl. I do not feel a single ounce of panic. I feel a terrifying absolute calm settling into my bones. Jamal is not flooding my phone with calls because he regrets destroying our marriage. He is not frantically typing messages because he is remorseful about wrapping his hands around his 26-year-old assistant. He is having a complete mental breakdown because his pristine public image is fracturing in real time. Tonight was supposed to be the crowning achievement of his career. The board was coming to our house to finalize his appointment as permanent chief executive officer. He needed the devoted attorney wife pouring expensive wine. He needed the perfectly well-behaved 7-year-old daughter blowing out candles to prove he is the ultimate family man. Without us, he is just a man standing in an empty house with catered food and a massive, unexplainable void. I methodically begin the process of erasing our digital footprints. I power down my primary cell phone and toss it onto the plush king-sized bed of the hotel suite. I log into the vehicle tracking application connected to my SUV and disable the location broadcasting feature. I take Zuri's smartwatch off her wrist, gently telling her it is time to put away screens and focus on her presence. I shut that down too. Every cord tying us to Jamal is cleanly severed, but I am a corporate attorney. I do not run blindly into the night and hide. I set highly calculated traps. I reach into Zuri's pink backpack and pull out her school-issued tablet. I connect the device directly to the public wireless network of the St. Regis Hotel. I open this family tracking application that Jamal insisted we all install for safety purposes, and I leave the application running brightly on the screen. It is a digital breadcrumb, a flashing neon sign pointing directly to my location. I know exactly how his mind works. When he realizes my phone is dead, he will inevitably track the child he uses as a prop. Zuri is completely engrossed in a new building block set I purchased from the hotel gift shop. I utilize one of the premier perks of booking the presidential suite and summon the exclusive in-house childcare service. A highly vetted professional nanny arrives within 10 minutes. I instruct her that Zuri is not to leave the suite under any circumstances, and I slip a crisp $100 bill into her hand for absolute discretion. I step out of the suite and ride the gold-plated elevator down to the main floor. The lobby of the St. Regis is a masterpiece of quiet luxury, featuring vaulted ceilings, crystal chandeliers, and thick carpets that absorb the sounds of the wealthy patrons. I glide into the lobby lounge and select a high-backed velvet booth that gives me a clear, unobstructed view of the heavy glass revolving doors at the main entrance. A server immediately approaches, and I order a dry martini. When the drink arrives, I take a slow, measured sip, letting the sharp bite of the gin ground me in the present moment. As I look at the crystal glass, my mind involuntarily rewinds to exactly 7 days ago. We were standing in our massive kitchen. Jamal was adjusting his custom silk tie in the reflection of the stainless steel refrigerator, looking at me with that signature blend of pity and supreme arrogance. I had just spent 14 hours negotiating a brutal commercial acquisition, and I was exhausted. I asked him to pick Zuri up from her ballet class. He had rolled his eyes and let out a heavy theatrical sigh. "Your little financial consulting business is cute, Aaliyah," he had said while pouring his black coffee. "It keeps you busy and out of trouble. But healing people is a legacy. I am building something that actually matters to the community. You just push paper around a desk." I swirl the olive in my glass, a cold smile touching the corners of my mouth. Cute. He called Vanguard Holdings cute. Jamal genuinely believes I sit in a leased downtown office, helping local boutique businesses balance their checkbooks and file tax returns. He has absolutely no idea that my holding company quietly purchased the 30-acre commercial land trust directly beneath the Atlanta Medical Center last quarter. He does not know that I spent 2 years aggressively maneuvering through shell corporations and proxy buyers to secure the deed to that prime real estate. The ground he walks on every single day belongs to me. The parking garage where he parks his leased luxury car belongs to me. The very foundation of his so-called legacy is sitting in my investment portfolio. I am his landlord. I literally collect the rent on his ego. And he has no idea that the cute little paper pusher he married holds the power to completely terminate the hospital expansion project he needs to secure his CEO title. The minutes tick by with agonizing precision. The antique grandfather clock in the corner of the lobby chimes, indicating another half hour has passed. The board members have definitely arrived at our house by now. I can perfectly picture the scene. The expensive catered salmon getting cold on the dining room table. The string quartet Jamal hired playing awkwardly in the corner of the living room. Jamal must be sweating profusely through his tailored suit, scrambling for a believable excuse. He's probably telling them I had a sudden family emergency or that Zuri fell terribly ill. The lies are unraveling faster than he can spin them. I check my secondary burner phone, which I purchased specifically for business contingencies. A custom alert pops up on the screen. The tracking application on Zuri's tablet has just been accessed from an external device. He took the bait. He found the ping. I finish the last sip of my martini and sit perfectly still. Less than 15 minutes later, the heavy glass revolving doors of the hotel entrance spin violently. Jamal bursts into the opulent lobby. He looks completely frantic. His expensive tie is askew, his suit jacket is unbuttoned, and his eyes are darting wildly around the high-ceilinged room. He is breathing heavily as if he sprinted from his car to the entrance. He looks nothing like the polished, confident hospital director who was just embracing his assistant hours earlier. He looks like a man whose entire world is collapsing. But the real shock is not the sight of my panicking husband. It is the woman storming in right behind him. My mother-in-law. Brenda marches through the revolving doors carrying an aura of absolute fury. She is wearing her most expensive formal church attire, clearly pulled away from whatever high society gossip circle she was holding court in this evening. Brenda has always viewed me as an unworthy addition to her family. She is the ultimate gatekeeper of her own twisted version of black excellence, firmly believing that my quiet demeanor meant I lacked the pedigree required for her golden child son. Her eyes scan the lobby and lock instantly onto me, sitting calmly in the velvet booth. Her face contorts into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. She grips her designer handbag tightly by the leather strap, swinging it forward with the momentum of a weapon as she quickly closes the distance between us. She is preparing to cause a massive scene, but she does not realize she is walking directly into a slaughter. Brenda reaches my table and the overpowering scent of her expensive floral perfume hits me before she even speaks. She slams both of her manicured hands flat onto the polished marble surface of my table, making my martini glass rattle. Her chest is heaving beneath her tailored silk blouse, and her eyes are wide with a ferocious, indignant rage. She does not care that we are in the middle of a five-star hotel lobby. She only cares that her golden child is currently experiencing a profound inconvenience. I told Jamal a woman who sits behind a laptop all day would never know how to support a black man of his stature. She hisses, her voice trembling with venom. You are ruining his chance at the chief executive officer promotion over a petty temper tantrum. Do you have any idea what he has sacrificed to get this hospital board in your dining room tonight? You have absolutely no pedigree, Aaliyah. No sense of duty to your family. You are acting like an ungrateful child throwing a fit because he works long hours to provide for you. Jamal steps up right behind her, nodding along as if his mother is preaching gospel. He adjusts his suit jacket, trying to regain some semblance of the authoritative medical director persona he wears like armor. His face is slick with sweat, but his tone is sharp and commanding. He actually believes he still has the upper hand. You are acting insane. Alia, he demands, pointing a finger at me. I do not know what kind of delusional episode you are having, but it ends right now. You are going to march over to those elevators, go up to whatever room you booked on my dime and pack Zuri's things. We are getting in the car, and we are going back to the house. The caterers are holding the main course. You are going to walk through our front door, smile at the board chairman, and tell him you had a sudden migraine, but you pushed through because supporting your husband is your top priority. Do you understand me? You will not humiliate me tonight. I do not flinch. I do not raise my voice to match their chaotic frequency. I simply lean back against the plush velvet upholstery of the booth and cross my legs. I take another slow, deliberate sip of my martini. I let the silence stretch out between us, forcing them to sit in the uncomfortable void of my absolute calm. The more silent I remain, the more Jamal's manufactured confidence begins to crack. His jaw clenches. He reaches across the table, attempting to grab my wrist. "Do not touch me," I say. My voice is barely above a whisper, but it carries a lethal weight that makes his hand freeze in midair. "I am not the one humiliating you, Jamal. You managed to do an exceptionally thorough job of that entirely on your own." Brenda scoffs, rolling her eyes and throwing her hands up in exasperation. "This is exactly what I mean, Jamal. She is unhinged. She is trying to sabotage you because she is jealous of your success. Get her upstairs and get my granddaughter. We do not have time for this nonsense." I set my glass down on the matching coaster. I look directly into Brenda's eyes, watching the sheer arrogance radiating from her posture. She has spent the last 8 years treating me like a charity case her brilliant son took pity on. She constantly reminded me that her family came from generations of educated professionals, while I had to claw my way up from a working-class neighborhood. She prided herself on her flawless judgment and her pristine family legacy. I am about to tear that legacy to absolute shreds. Before I go anywhere, "Brenda, there is a small matter of stolen property we need to discuss," I say smoothly, keeping my gaze locked on hers. Brenda frowns, her heavily drawn eyebrows knitting together in confusion. "Stolen property? What are you talking about? Stop changing the subject and go get my granddaughter." I reach into my black leather designer handbag resting on the seat beside me. I do not pull out a room key. I do not pull out a phone. I pull out a thick, glossy 8x10 printed photograph. I place it face down on the marble table. I keep my manicured hand resting gently on top of it. "6 months ago, Brenda, you fired your housekeeper of 10 years, I state calmly. You accused Miss Clara of stealing your vintage diamond sunburst brooch, the platinum one passed down from your grandmother, the one you planned to wear to the hospital gala. You brought the police to her tiny apartment. You had her car searched. You nearly had a hardworking 60-year-old woman thrown in prison over a piece of jewelry." Brenda crosses her arms defensively, her posture growing rigid. "Clara was a thief. The police simply could not find where she fenced it. I do not see what my stolen heirloom has to do with you abandoning your duties as a wife tonight." Jamal shifts his weight uncomfortably. A faint sheen of fresh panic breaks out across his forehead. "Aaliyah, stop talking in riddles," he snaps. "Let us go, now." I ignore him completely. "I remember how devastated you were, Brenda." I continue, my voice dripping with mock sympathy. "And I remember how Jamal played the role of the incredibly supportive son. He sat with you in your living room, holding your hand, telling you that material things could be replaced, but family was what truly mattered. He even offered to buy you a replica to ease the pain of the betrayal. It was such a beautiful, touching display of a son's devotion." I slide the glossy photograph across the smooth marble surface directly until it stops right in front of Brenda. I flip it over. It is a high-resolution, zoomed-in photograph taken from a private social media account. The image shows a beautiful 26-year-old woman sitting at a candlelit table in a five-star restaurant. She is smiling radiantly at the camera, holding up a glass of expensive champagne. She is wearing a plunging silk dress, and pinned directly to the center of her plunging neckline, sparkling under the restaurant chandeliers, is a vintage platinum diamond sunburst brooch. Brenda stares down at the photograph. The air leaves her lungs in a sharp, audible gasp. All the arrogant, self-righteous energy instantly evaporates from her body. Her manicured hands begin to tremble as she reaches out to trace the image of the jewelry with her index finger. She knows every single cut of those diamonds. She knows the exact antique setting. There is absolutely no mistaking what she is looking at. "Who is this?" Brenda whispers, her voice suddenly frail and completely hollow. "Where did you get this?" I lean forward, resting my elbows on the table. "That is Chloe, Jamal's newly hired executive assistant. The woman he was intimately wrapped up with in his hospital office less than 3 hours ago, while I stood outside the door holding a birthday cake for his daughter." Jamal makes a strangled, choking sound in the back of his throat. He lunges forward, trying to snatch the photograph off the table, but Brenda is faster. She snatches the picture up, holding it close to her face. Her eyes dart wildly from the smiling face of the young mistress to the face of her golden child son. The realization hits her with the force of a freight train. Clara the housekeeper did not steal the heirloom. Her perfect, flawless son had stolen it right out of her jewelry box to play sugar daddy to a woman 10 years my junior. Mom, I can explain, Jamal stammers, taking a step back as Brenda slowly turns her horrified gaze toward him. That is an old picture. I mean, it is a misunderstanding. I did not take your brooch. That has to be a replica. Aaliyah is photoshopping things to frame me. Brenda's chest heaves. You let me fire, Clara, she says, her voice breaking with an agonizing mix of humiliation and absolute betrayal. You sat on my sofa and held my hand and watched me cry over my grandmother's diamonds. And you gave them to a hospital secretary. Mom, please listen to me, Jamal begs, holding his hands up defensively. Do not let Aaliyah do this. She is trying to tear our family apart. We need to get back to the house. The board members are waiting. My promotion is on the line. I let out a soft melodic laugh that cuts through his pathetic pleading. Your promotion is already dead, Jamal. Just like this marriage. You just have not received the autopsy report yet. Brenda clutches her chest, crumpling the photograph in her fist. The reality of her son's deceit completely shatters the pedestal she had placed him on for 35 years. The golden child facade is entirely gone, leaving nothing but a desperate lying thief standing in an expensive suit. She looks at me, her previous hostility replaced by a stunning, profound silence. She has absolutely nothing left to say. I pick up my martini glass and take one final satisfying sip. Then I raise my left hand and snap my fingers twice. From the shadows of the lobby pillars, 4 massive men, dressed in impeccable black suits, step forward. I had arranged for the private security detail the moment I booked the suite, knowing Jamal's explosive temper would eventually lead him here. The guards move with swift, silent efficiency, forming a solid wall of muscle directly behind Jamal and Brenda. Gentlemen, I say, addressing the head of the security team. These 2 individuals are not guests of the hotel and they are harassing me. Please escort my soon-to-be ex-husband and his mother off the premises immediately. If they resist or attempt to return, you have my full authorization to contact the local authorities and press trespassing charges. Jamal's eyes widen in sheer terror as 2 of the security guards step up on either side of him, gripping his arms with unyielding force. Aaliyah, you cannot do this, he shouts, struggling fruitlessly against their hold. The board is at the house. If I do not show up, my career is ruined. You are destroying my life. I smile warmly, looking at the desperate panic consuming his face. I am not destroying your life, Jamal. I am just letting you play the role of the good father you so desperately wanted. Enjoy the dinner party. The security guards pivot him around forcefully, marching him toward the heavy glass revolving doors. Brenda does not fight them. She simply turns and walks away, her shoulders slumped, clutching the crumpled photograph of her grandmother's stolen diamonds. She looks entirely broken. I watch through the floor-to-ceiling lobby windows as they are physically ejected onto the downtown sidewalk, completely disgraced. I settle back into my velvet booth, pulling out my secondary burner phone. This was merely the appetizer. The real financial slaughter is scheduled for tomorrow morning. The morning sun filters through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the presidential suite, casting a golden glow over the expensive mahogany furniture. I am sitting at the dining table, sipping a freshly brewed espresso, when the first strike of the day arrives. I had just ordered a lavish room service breakfast for Zuri, consisting of Belgian waffles and fresh berries. When the server brings the silver tray into the suite, I hand him my platinum joint credit card to cover the gratuity. The server runs the card through his mobile terminal. The machine beeps a harsh, discordant tone. He tries again. His face flushes with profound embarrassment as he looks up at me, apologizing profusely and stating the card has been declined. I do not panic. I simply open my purse, retrieve a crisp $100 bill, and hand it to the server, thanking him for his discretion. The moment the heavy suite door clicks shut, my cell phone vibrates on the table. A notification from my banking application appears on the screen indicating a critical account alert. I log in and the screen confirms exactly what I already suspect. Our joint checking account has been completely frozen. The available balance on my supplementary credit cards reads zero. Jamal has meticulously locked me out of every single financial resource we share. A voicemail notification pops up immediately following the banking alert. I press play and set the phone on the table, letting Jamal's voice fill the quiet room. His tone is dripping with unearned arrogance and venomous satisfaction. Let us see how long you survive in a luxury suite on a freelancer salary. Aaliyah, he sneers through the speaker. I checked the accounts. You are completely cut off. I froze the joint checking and I canceled all your supplementary credit cards. You really thought you could embarrass me in front of the hospital board and just hide out at the St. Regis on my dime. Come home and stop this foolishness before you completely ruin yourself. You do not have the resources to play this game with me. I am the provider. You need to pack up my daughter, come back to this house, and beg for my forgiveness. I listened to the entire message without my heart rate elevating a single beat. He truly believes he has executed a brilliant tactical maneuver. For our entire marriage, Jamal has used his income as a weapon of compliance. He adored playing the ultimate provider. He constantly lorded his hospital director salary over my head, treating my corporate law career as if it were a quaint little hobby. Every Thanksgiving dinner, his mother Brenda would sit at the head of our table, loudly praising God for giving her a son who took such excellent financial care of his wife so I could play at working. They both weaponized his black excellence against me, assuming my quiet demeanor meant I was utterly dependent on his paycheck. I pick up the canceled platinum cards from the table. I bend the plastic back and forth until it snaps in half, dropping the jagged pieces directly into the trash bin. Then I open the hidden zippered compartment of my designer handbag. I extract a sleek, solid metal black corporate card. It carries a reassuring weight in my palm. There is no spending limit on this card. It is tied directly to Vanguard Holdings, the commercial real estate empire I built entirely in the shadows while my husband and his family were busy underestimating my intelligence. I leave Zuri happily eating her waffles under the watchful eye of the private nanny, and I ride the elevator down to the main lobby. I walk straight to the concierge desk. The hotel manager spots me and immediately looks nervous, rushing over to intercept me. Mrs. Williams, I am so incredibly sorry to bother you, the manager says, lowering his voice to a discreet whisper. Your husband actually called the front desk 10 minutes ago. He informed us that your payment method was invalid and demanded we evict you from the suite immediately. He was quite hostile on the phone. I offer the manager a warm, reassuring smile. My soon-to-be ex-husband is currently experiencing a severe emotional crisis, I state calmly. There was a temporary issue with my personal banking, but we are going to rectify that right now. I slide the heavy black metal card across the polished marble counter. Please switch all billing for the presidential suite to this corporate account. In fact, go ahead and charge the suite for the next 30 days up front. The manager looks at the prestigious black card, and his eyes widen slightly. He processes the transaction, and the approval is instantaneous. A charge that easily rivals a down payment on a house clears without a single fraction of a delay. The manager returns the card to me with a bow of profound respect, completely dismissing Jamal's desperate phone call. Let me know if you need absolutely anything else, madam, he says. I secure the card back in my bag and walk down the wide corridor leading to the hotel's executive business center. I reserved their most secure glass-walled boardroom late last night. As I push open the heavy oak doors, two people are already sitting at the conference table waiting for my arrival. Marcus, a highly sought-after private investigator, and Kendra, a ruthless forensic accountant, who I have retained on retainer for Vanguard Holdings. They both sit up straight as I enter the room, recognizing the shift in my demeanor. I unlock my leather briefcase and pull out a massive stack of folders. I had quietly made copies of Jamal's hospital financial disclosures, tax returns, and personal banking statements weeks before I ever caught him in his office with Chloe. I drop the heavy stack of documents right in the center of the mahogany desk. The sound echoes sharply in the quiet boardroom, signaling the official commencement of a financial war. Jamal just cut off my access to our personal funds, I announce, keeping my voice cold and intensely focused. He thinks he is starving me out. He thinks he has cornered me and forced my hand, which means he is currently feeling desperate but dangerously overconfident. He is making sloppy emotional decisions. Find the money he is spending on Chloe. He is arrogant enough to leave a paper trail. I leave the forensic accountant and my private investigator sitting in the glass-walled boardroom of the St. Regis Hotel. The digital trail they are currently hunting will be the final nail in Jamal's coffin, but right now, my only priority is my daughter. I retrieve my vehicle from the valet and navigate through the heavy afternoon traffic toward the elite private academy Zuri attends. The campus is a sprawling fortress of manicured lawns and historic brick buildings, completely insulated from the noise of the city. The afternoon pickup line is a highly choreographed dance of luxury vehicles, driven by nannies and wealthy mothers. I guide my Range Rover into the queue, putting my car in park as I wait for the final bell to ring. I check my reflection in the rearview mirror, adjusting my posture. I take a slow, deep breath, forcing the ruthless corporate attorney back into her box and bringing the calm, protective mother forward. Zuri does not need to feel the tremors of the war I am waging. The school bell chimes, echoing across the pristine courtyard. Children begin flooding out of the heavy wooden doors. I spot Zuri immediately with her bright smile and her pink backpack skipping toward the designated pickup zone alongside her teacher. I reach for the door handle to step out and greet her, but a sudden violent screech of tires shatters the orderly calm of the parking lot. A massive silver Escalade swerves completely out of the designated driving lane, cutting off two other vehicles and aggressively pulling diagonally across the space, directly in front of my car. The maneuver traps me perfectly against the curb. The driver's side door of the Escalade flies open. Tasha steps out onto the pavement. Jamal's older sister is wearing a designer tracksuit and carrying a handbag that costs more than a reliable used car. She marches toward my vehicle with a look of absolute entitlement stamped across her face. Right behind her slides out Greg, her white husband, who always looks like a misplaced extra from a discount country club commercial. Greg runs a local freight logistics company that has been teetering on the edge of total bankruptcy for the better part of a decade. Tasha and Greg live entirely above their means, treating Jamal like a personal automated teller machine to fund their lavish vacations and designer wardrobes. They are the ultimate parasites, feeding off my husband's desperate need to feel like the powerful patriarch of his extended family. I do not unlock my doors immediately. I watch them march toward my car, their faces twisted with matching expressions of self-righteous anger. Tasha marches right up to my driver's side window and aggressively taps her acrylic nails against the tinted glass. I press the button, rolling the window down exactly 3 inches. Just enough to hear her, but not enough to give her access to my personal space. Alia, you need to unlock this car right now. Tasha demands, her voice loud enough to draw the attention of several other parents standing nearby. What is wrong with you? Jamal called us in an absolute panic. You humiliated him in front of the entire hospital board last night, and now he says you have moved into a hotel. You are acting completely unhinged. You need to pack your things, bring my niece back to her actual home, and stop tearing this family apart over a misunderstanding. I stare at her, tracking the blatant hypocrisy radiating from her pores. She calls her brother's blatant infidelity a misunderstanding. Tasha has always hated me. She hated that I did not kiss the ground Jamal walked on the way she and Brenda did. She hated that I earned my own money and never needed to ask her brother for a single dime. But most of all, she hated that I could see right through her shallow, materialistic existence. Before I can even formulate a response to her sheer audacity, Greg steps forward. He physically pushes his wife slightly to the side and leans his forearms heavily against the top of my partially open window. He looks down at me with an expression of profound condescension. The sheer arrogance of this mediocre white man preparing to lecture me, a highly successful black woman, on the dynamics of my own marriage is almost blinding. Look, Alia, as a man, I know Jamal is under immense pressure. Greg says, his voice dripping with paternalistic authority. Being a black hospital director in this city is incredibly tough. He carries the weight of the world on his shoulders to provide a beautiful life for you and Zuri. Men in his position sometimes make mistakes. They slip up when the stress gets to be too much. You need to swallow your pride, grow up, and stand by your man. You are destroying his focus when he needs you the most. The air inside my car suddenly feels incredibly still. The audacity of his words hangs in the space between us, toxic and suffocating. He actually used the phrase, stand by your man, while defending a husband who was practically undressing his 26-year-old assistant in his office. Greg is looking at me, waiting for his words to sink in, expecting me to bow my head and accept his profound masculine wisdom. I press the engine button, turning off my car. I unlock the doors. Greg, you need to step back, I say, my voice dropping to a low, dangerous register. He smirks, shaking his head slightly. Aaliyah, I am just trying to help you see the bigger picture here. Jamal is a good man who— I do not wait for him to finish his sentence. I throw my full weight against the heavy reinforced door of my Range Rover, pushing it open with violent force. The metal door slams directly into Greg's chest. He grunts in surprise, stumbling backward awkwardly over his own expensive loafers and nearly losing his balance on the asphalt. I step out of the vehicle, rising to my full height. I grab the edge of my car door and slam it shut behind me. The loud mechanical crack echoes across the pickup line, silencing the chatter of the nearby parents. Tasha gasps, reaching out to grab her husband's arm. Are you crazy, Aaliyah? You could have hurt him. I step directly into Greg's personal space, forcing him to take another step back. My eyes are locked onto his, entirely stripping away the polite corporate facade I usually wear around my in-laws. The only thing you know about pressure. Greg is dodging calls from debt collectors, I say, my voice ringing out clear and sharp across the parking lot. You have the absolute nerve to stand here and lecture me about how hard my husband works to provide when you cannot even provide for your own household. Your freight logistics company has been operating in the red for 6 consecutive years. Tasha steps forward, her face flushing a deep, angry red. Keep our business out of this, Aaliyah. You do not know anything about our finances. I turn my gaze to her, cutting her off instantly. I know exactly how much your husband begged Jamal for money, Tasha. I know that my husband bailed out Greg's failing company 3 separate times in the last 4 years. $200,000 just to keep the repo men from taking your delivery trucks. Another $50,000 so you could keep paying the mortgage on that house you pretend you can afford. You are both standing here defending his infidelity because you are terrified the Bank of Jamal is going to close its doors if our marriage falls apart. You do not care about my family. You care about your funding. Greg's face contorts from shock into deep defensive anger. He puffs out his chest, trying to regain his lost authority. You listen to me, you arrogant. Keep my name out of your mouth, Greg. I snap, slicing through his sentence before he can even form the insult. You are a financial parasite. If you ever block my car in again, or attempt to approach my daughter at her school, I will personally call in the marker on that massive business loan you owe. I will bankrupt you before the sun goes down. The threat hangs heavily in the warm afternoon air. Several parents are actively watching us now, whispering among themselves, but I do not care. I am establishing a perimeter, and I am making it absolutely clear that anyone who crosses it will be destroyed. Greg scoffs, crossing his arms over his chest and letting out a harsh, mocking laugh. He looks at Tasha and shakes his head, treating my threat like the hysterical rambling of a scorned woman. You cannot call in anything, Aaliyah, Greg says, a smug, satisfied grin spreading across his face. You do not hold the paper on that loan. Jamal does. Jamal is the one who lent me the money, and Jamal is my brother. He would never foreclose on his own family, no matter how much you cry about it. You have absolutely no power over my business. I look at him. I look at the unearned confidence radiating from his posture. I let out a soft, genuine laugh right in his face. It is a cold, sharp sound that makes Tasha's eyes widen with sudden uncertainty. You really should read the fine print on your creditor assignments. Greg, I say, tilting my head and letting a shark-like smile touch my lips. Jamal did not want that massive outstanding loan sitting on his personal financial disclosures when he went up for the hospital's CEO position. It looked like a terrible liability. So he sold your debt to a third-party commercial holding company a year ago just to hide it from his taxes and clean up his public portfolio. Greg's smug smile falters slightly. His arms slowly drop to his sides. What are you talking about? Jamal would not sell my debt to a stranger. He did not sell it to a stranger, Greg. I whisper, leaning in close enough for him to see the absolute ruin waiting in my eyes. Care to guess who owns that holding company? I leave Greg standing in the school parking lot, his face completely drained of all its unearned, arrogant color. The sudden realization that I hold the absolute leash to his entire livelihood hits him so hard, he actually staggers back from my vehicle. I slide into the driver's seat, start the engine, and drive away, without granting him or Tasha a single glance in the rearview mirror. My hands grip the leather steering wheel, but they are perfectly steady. For years, I allowed Jamal and his leeches to treat me like a convenient accessory to their manufactured dynasty. They mistook my professional discretion for weakness. They genuinely believed my quiet demeanor meant I was blind to their financial parasitism. They are about to learn that my silence was never submission. I was simply doing the math. I navigate through the heavy afternoon traffic, making my way back to the St. Regis Hotel. The contrast between the chaos of my collapsing marriage and the quiet power of my corporate reality has never been sharper. Jamal loves to preach about the burdens of Black excellence. He uses his status as a hospital director as a shield to deflect any criticism from his family, demanding absolute loyalty and subservience in exchange for his financial crumbs. He built a kingdom of dependents who are terrified of upsetting him. But I am not one of his dependents. I am the apex predator in a commercial real estate jungle he cannot even begin to comprehend. I hand my keys to the valet and head straight up to the presidential suite. Zuri is sitting cross-legged on the thick plush carpet, happily watching an animated movie, while the private hotel nanny French braids her hair. My daughter looks up and smiles at me, completely unaware of the absolute war raging just outside these soundproof walls. I walk over and press a long kiss to the top of her head. I assure her I will be right back, ensuring she feels perfectly safe and oblivious before I grab my leather briefcase and head back down to the Executive Business Center on the second floor. The glass-walled boardroom is strictly off-limits to anyone without VIP clearance. When I push the heavy oak doors open, my private investigator Calvin and my forensic accountant Kendra are already seated at the massive conference table. They do not stand to greet me, and they do not offer any polite pleasantries. The atmosphere in the room is heavy and suffocating. Calvin pushes a thick sealed manila folder directly to the center of the polished wood table. His face is deadly serious. Calvin has worked for my holding company for 5 years, tracking down hidden assets and corporate espionage, but I have never seen him look this deeply unsettled. I take my seat at the head of the table, unbutton my blazer, and pull the folder toward me. I break the thick wax seal and flip open the heavy cover. The first dozen pages are highlighted bank statements and heavily redacted internal hospital ledgers. Jamal did not just freeze your personal joint checking accounts to starve you out, Kendra says, her voice low and entirely clinical. He needed to divert your attention because he is currently liquidating everything he can legally touch. But whatever he drained from your household accounts is just pocket change compared to what he has been doing at the hospital. I flip to the next page. It is a highly detailed ledger from the Atlanta Medical Center Federal Grant Division. Jamal was recently appointed as the primary overseer for a massive government grant intended to fund community health outreach programs in underserved urban neighborhoods. I scan the columns of numbers, my eyes narrowing as I trace the flow of capital. There is a recurring vendor listed on page after page, a medical supply consulting firm that has been receiving weekly automated payments of $50,000. I look up at Calvin, locking eyes with him. Let me guess, I say, my voice dropping to a lethal calm. This consulting firm does not actually provide any medical supplies. Calvin shakes his head. It does not even exist, Aaliyah. It is a highly sophisticated shell company. Jamal set it up exactly 8 months ago, which, not so coincidentally, is the exact same week hospital records show he officially hired Chloe as his executive assistant. The federal grant funds are wired to the shell company under the guise of phantom consulting services, washed through 2 separate offshore accounts to obscure the origin, and then routed directly back into domestic luxury real estate. I turn the page and stare at the high-resolution photographs Calvin has provided. They are glossy exterior and interior shots of a brand-new ultra-luxury high-rise building located in the most expensive and exclusive residential district in the city. The photographs show floor-to-ceiling windows, private rooftop terrace access, imported Italian marble countertops, and custom hardwood flooring. Jamal did not just buy his mistress a few designer handbags or pay off her student loans to keep her quiet and compliant. He used stolen federal grant money to buy Chloe a $1.2 million luxury penthouse. I stare at the photograph of the master bedroom. It is the exact same bedroom where my husband has been spending his late nights while coming home and claiming he was exhausted from saving lives and building a generational legacy. The sheer audacity of his hypocrisy makes a cold sickness rise in my throat. He stood in my kitchen just days ago and told me that my financial career was cute but meaningless compared to his noble medical profession. I demanded respect and subservience from his entire family, while he was actively stealing from the very community he swore an oath to serve. All of it just to finance a high-end playground for a 26-year-old secretary who strokes his fragile ego. But the betrayal does not stop at infidelity or even embezzlement. Kendra leans forward, tapping a polished fingernail against the final stack of documents in the folder. It is a certified copy of the official property deed for the penthouse and the original articles of incorporation for the shell company. I thought he was a genius, Aliyah, Kendra says, her tone laced with absolute disgust. He knew that as the incoming hospital director, any sudden luxury real estate purchases under his name would trigger an immediate audit by the conservative hospital board of directors. He could not risk putting the shell company or the penthouse under his own social security number. It would flag his credit and destroy his promotion before it was even announced. I pull the property deed closer to me, my eyes quickly scanning the dense legal text. I look at the bottom line, right where the primary shareholder and legal owner of the shell company is required to sign. The breath is violently knocked out of my lungs. I feel the blood drain completely from my face, leaving me cold and utterly motionless. Sitting right there on the signature line, rendered perfectly in black ink, is my name. It is a flawless, highly practiced forgery of my exact signature. Calvin points his silver pen directly at the forged ink, tapping the paper twice. He used your identity to register the shell company, Calvin says, his voice dropping to a harsh, urgent whisper. He put the entire fraudulent operation in your name to keep his own hands perfectly clean. If the federal investigators look into the missing hospital grant funds, they are not going to arrest Jamal. You are the one taking the fall. I stare at my forged signature as the true magnitude of his betrayal crashes over me. Jamal did not just break his wedding vows. He did not just insult my intelligence or disrespect our home. He actively, methodically planned to use me as his human shield. He was willing to let the mother of his child go to federal prison. I was perfectly fine watching me lose my law license, lose custody of Zuri, and lose every single asset I had ever worked for, just so he could maintain his pristine public image and keep his mistress wrapped in imported silk. The cold sickness in my throat vanishes entirely, instantly replaced by a burning, weaponized rage. He thinks he has trapped me in a corner. He thinks I am just a quiet little corporate lawyer who will panic and take a plea deal to avoid a public scandal. He has absolutely no idea that he just handed me the exact ammunition I need to tear his entire kingdom straight down to the bedrock. I leave the forensic accountant and my private investigator sitting in the glass-walled boardroom of the hotel. The digital trail they uncovered regarding the shell company and my forged signature is the final nail in Jamal's coffin. I secure the heavy sealed folder inside my leather briefcase and walk the 3 blocks to a high-end coffee shop located near my financial firm. The morning rush has faded, leaving the space filled with the quiet hum of wealthy downtown professionals conducting discreet meetings over expensive espresso. I slide into a secluded leather booth, ordering a simple black coffee. I am meticulously reviewing my legal strategy, calculating my exact next maneuver to completely dismantle my husband and avoid federal implication when the overwhelming scent of cheap vanilla perfume violently assaults my senses. I do not even have to look up from my tablet to know exactly who just invaded my perimeter. Chloe slides into the booth directly opposite me, completely uninvited. She does not ask to sit down. She simply invades my personal space with the staggering, unearned confidence of a woman who genuinely believes she has won a grand prize. She is wearing a tailored designer suit that clearly costs more than her monthly salary at the hospital. She sets a massive luxury handbag on the table, a bag I know for an absolute fact was purchased with embezzled community health funds. She is holding a large iced caramel latte, swirling it slowly so the ice cubes clink loudly against the plastic cup. She looks me up and down with an expression of profound pity, masking a deep-seated arrogance. She thinks she holds all the power. She thinks I am a tragic obstacle standing in the way of her fairy tale ending. Jamal says you are making this difficult. Aaliyah. She states, her voice carrying a sickeningly sweet tone meant to be deeply patronizing. She leans back against the plush leather booth, crossing her legs and acting as if she owns the entire establishment. You really need to step aside gracefully. Jamal is stepping into a massive new chapter of his life. He needs a vibrant, supportive partner for his CEO era, not some bitter woman holding him back with unreasonable demands. You are just embarrassing yourself by dragging this out. I look at this 26-year-old girl. She actually believes the lies Jamal feeds her. She believes Jamal chose her because she is uniquely special, rather than because she is young, gullible, and easily manipulated. She sits there wearing a stolen lifestyle, lecturing me about stepping aside gracefully. A lesser woman would throw her hot coffee directly in Chloe's face. A reactive woman would raise her voice, cause a massive scene, and give this mistress the exact dramatic reaction she is desperately seeking. I do none of those things. I am a corporate attorney who orchestrates hostile takeovers and navigates complex commercial litigation for breakfast. Chloe is not a threat to my emotional stability. Chloe is a golden opportunity to gather irrefutable federal evidence. I slowly lower my hands to my lap. Beneath the edge of the heavy mahogany table, I unlock my smartphone using facial recognition. I open the voice memo application and tap the red record button, ensuring the microphone is pointed directly at her side of the booth. Then I drop my impenetrable armor. I let my shoulders slump forward slightly, mimicking the posture of a woman carrying an unbearable weight. I lower my gaze to the table, refusing to meet her eyes. I force my breathing to become shallow and ragged, projecting the exact physical symptoms of a thoroughly defeated, broken wife. I play perfectly into the pathetic narrative Jamal has undoubtedly constructed for her. Is it true? I ask, my voice trembling with a perfectly manufactured vulnerability. I look up at her, letting my eyes widen as if I am fighting back a sudden wave of unshed tears. Did he really buy you that penthouse? Or is that just a cruel rumor his mother started to punish me for leaving him? Chloe leans forward, a triumphant sneer spreading across her glossy lips. She completely buys the performance. The sheer arrogance radiating from her pores is blinding. She cannot resist the urge to twist the knife she thinks she has buried in my chest. It is not a rumor. Aaliyah, she brags, her voice loud and completely unbothered by any nearby patrons who might be listening. He bought it for me 3 months ago. It is absolutely gorgeous. It has floor-to-ceiling windows and a private rooftop terrace overlooking the entire city. Jamal knows how to treat a woman who actually appreciates his hard work. He wanted me to have a place where we could truly be a family once he gets rid of you. I sniffle, bringing a hand up to wipe an imaginary tear from my cheek. But how did he afford it, I ask, keeping my tone laced with desperate confusion. His salary is public record. He makes a good living, but he does not make enough to buy a $1.2 million property in cash without liquidating our joint assets. And our joint accounts do not reflect that kind of massive withdrawal. Chloe laughs, a sharp, mocking sound that captures perfectly clear audio on my hidden recording device. She shakes her head, looking at me like I am a naive child. You really do not know anything about your own husband, do you? She says, swirling her iced latte again. Jamal is a brilliant man. He controls all the hidden assets at the hospital. He oversees the massive federal grants meant for community outreach, and he knows exactly how to route the money so the conservative board of directors never sees a single thing. He is an absolute genius. He set up a private consulting company to manage the funds so we can build our luxury life together without anyone asking annoying questions. He provides for me because I actually make him feel like a powerful black man. I respect his legacy. You just nagged him and made him feel small. I navigate the complex world of high-stakes commercial acquisitions every single day. I know exactly how federal investigators tear apart lives when they detect financial anomalies. Jamal has arrogantly played right into my hands. I watch Chloe take another sip of her drink, utterly oblivious to the legal avalanche hanging directly over her head. She thinks stealing a husband equates to securing a financial bag, but she failed to realize that her stolen bag is filled with federal crimes. When she speaks about him setting up a private consulting company to manage the funds, I feel a dark thrill of absolute victory. The shell company she is so proudly boasting about is the exact same entity Jamal registered using my forged signature. By bragging about her knowledge of the embezzlement scheme, she has effectively destroyed any plausible deniability she might have claimed during a criminal trial. She is now an active, willing co-conspirator. I make sure to keep my phone perfectly still beneath the table, capturing the ambient noise of the coffee shop alongside her damning testimony. I let the silence hang heavily in the air, allowing the digital recorder to capture every single syllable of her stunning confession. She just admitted on tape that my husband is embezzling federal grant money through a fraudulent shell company. She just confessed to knowingly receiving stolen corporate assets to fund a lavish lifestyle. She just handed me the ultimate key to a federal indictment on a silver platter, and she thinks she is winning an argument over a man. The sheer stupidity of her gloating is almost breathtaking. Chloe leans in closer, her face hovering just inches over the center of the table. Her voice drips with concentrated venom as she prepares to deliver what she firmly believes is the ultimate killing blow to my self-esteem. She wants to ensure I leave this coffee shop completely shattered. "He married you out of pity because you grew up with nothing," she whispers harshly, her eyes gleaming with malice. "He told me all about your background. You were just a charity case who looked good on paper when he needed to build his professional resume. But I am his future Aaliyah. You are just a mistake he is finally correcting." I reach under the table and hit the stop button on the recording. I quickly save the audio file directly to my highly secure encrypted cloud server. Then I sit up perfectly straight. I pull my shoulders back and let the pathetic facade of the broken wife evaporate instantly into the thin air. The sudden dramatic shift in my physical demeanor is so severe that Chloe actually flinches backward in her seat. The smug, triumphant smile slides completely off her face, replaced by a flicker of sudden primal confusion. She suddenly realizes she is sitting across from an apex predator who is merely playing dead. I reach into my designer wallet and pull out a crisp new $100 bill. I stand up slowly, towering over her shrinking form in the booth. I maintain unbroken eye contact, my gaze completely devoid of any human warmth. I drop the $100 bill directly onto the plastic lid of her iced caramel latte. "Enjoy the penthouse, Chloe." I say, my voice ringing with a cold, lethal authority that slices right through her newfound panic. I hear federal asset forfeiture moves very quickly. I do not wait to watch her process the sheer terror of my words. I turn my back on her and walk out of the coffee shop, leaving her sitting frozen in the booth, completely realizing she just handed a loaded weapon to the exact woman she tried to destroy. I step out of the coffee shop, the morning air feeling sharp and victorious against my skin. The encrypted audio file featuring Chloe happily confessing to federal embezzlement is safely backed up on 3 separate servers. I have the kill shot ready. But a cornered animal is incredibly dangerous, and Jamal is no exception. By the time I arrive back at my downtown law firm, the receptionist looks deeply uncomfortable. She gestures toward a man in a gray suit sitting in the waiting area. He stands up and hands me a thick manila envelope. "You have been served," he states flatly. I carry the heavy envelope into my corner office, lock the door, and tear it open. My blood turns to absolute ice. Jamal did not file for standard divorce proceedings. He filed emergency ex parte custody orders. I read through them, my eyes scanning the bold, aggressive legal text. He is accusing me of severe mental instability. He claims I suffered a psychotic break, abandoned our marital home, and violently kidnapped our 7-year-old daughter. He is petitioning the court for 100% full legal and physical custody. He is not doing this out of love for Zuri. He is doing this because a highly publicized, messy divorce with a missing wife ruins his pristine family man image right before the hospital board confirms his promotion. By branding me as an unstable, aggressive woman who stole his child, he preserves his victim narrative. He is weaponizing the judicial system to force me into submission. I immediately dial my family, instructing her to block the emergency order and force a mandatory mediation session. If Jamal wants to play the devastated father in a controlled environment, I will gladly give him the stage. The preliminary mediation takes place 48 hours later in a sterile, overly air-conditioned conference room at the downtown courthouse. I walk in wearing a tailored navy suit, projecting absolute calm. Jamal is already seated at the long wooden table. He has meticulously dressed for the part. He wears a muted gray suit, no flashy watch, and his posture is slumped in calculated defeat. He actually manages to look like a man completely exhausted by grief. Sitting directly behind him in the visitor chairs is his mother, Brenda. She is wearing a somber church suit, clutching a tissue and glaring daggers at me the moment I walk through the door. The court-appointed mediator, a soft-spoken woman named Linda, begins the session. Jamal immediately launches into the performance of a lifetime. He places his hands flat on the table, looking down as if fighting back tears. He tells the mediator that I have been under immense pressure at my law firm and that my mental health has severely deteriorated. He claims I dragged Zuri out of school in a manic state and isolated her in a hotel environment, depriving her of stability and her loving father. Hai says he just wants to get his little girl back to her beautiful suburban home where she belongs. Brenda sniffles loudly from the back of the room, providing the perfect dramatic soundtrack to his lies. I sit perfectly still, letting him dig his grave. I do not interrupt. I do not raise my voice or defend myself against the outrageous accusations of instability. The mediator turns to me, clearly swayed by his flawless presentation. Jamal is a respected hospital director, a pillar of the community, and a man saving lives. The mediator looks at me with a mixture of professional detachment and subtle judgment. Given the doctor's stellar community standing and the disruptive nature of your recent departure, the mediator says, leaning forward, I strongly suggest we look at a temporary custody arrangement that heavily favors the father. A 70-30 split with him retaining primary physical custody. It provides the child with immediate stability while you seek the necessary counseling for your sudden transition. My attorney stiffens, preparing to object, but I place a hand on her arm, silencing her. The mediator misinterprets my silence as surrender. She slides a temporary agreement document across the table. I am going to step out for 15 minutes to let you consult with your counsel, the mediator says, offering a tight, sympathetic smile. I highly recommend you sign this temporary order to avoid a much more aggressive ruling from the judge tomorrow morning. The mediator leaves the room, closing the heavy door behind her. My attorney leans in to whisper strategy, but Jamal suddenly stands up. His fake grief vanishes instantly, replaced by a cold, victorious sneer. He smooths his tie, looking down at me with utter contempt. I need to make a phone call to the hospital board, he announces, his voice dripping with arrogance. Think very carefully about your next move, Aaliyah. You do not have the reputation to win a mudslinging contest against me. He walks out of the conference room to make his call, leaving me entirely alone in the room with Brenda and my attorney. Brenda does not waste a single second. She stands up from the visitor chair and struts over to the conference table, leaning over it to get directly in my face. The scent of her heavy floral perfume is suffocating. She looks at the temporary custody agreement resting on the table and smiles a wicked, predatory smile. You really thought you could outsmart my son, Brenda? Hisses, her voice dropping to a harsh, mocking whisper. I told you from the very beginning that you were out of your league. Jamal is a king in this city. He saves lives. He builds legacy. You are just an angry, bitter woman trying to tear down a successful black man because you could not keep his attention in the bedroom. You need to pick up that pen and take the settlement right now. I look up at Brenda, my face completely devoid of emotion. She mistakes my calm for defeat and decides to twist the knife further, eager to secure her ultimate victory. You have absolutely no leverage left. Brenda gloats, tapping a manicured fingernail against the legal document. Jamal is about to secure the massive Peachtree Medical Complex expansion tomorrow morning. The hospital board is handing him the permanent CEO title the second that lease is signed. Hai is bringing millions of dollars in revenue into that hospital. He is completely untouchable. You fight him in court and he will crush you. He will take Zuri and he will leave you with nothing but legal fees and a ruined reputation. I stare at Brenda, letting her words echo in the sterile conference room. The Peachtree Medical Complex expansion. It is a highly coveted multi-million-dollar commercial lease. The hospital has been negotiating the terms for the past 6 months, desperately trying to secure the adjacent property to build their new state-of-the-art cardiology wing. Jamal's entire pitch to the board of directors relies heavily on his personal guarantee that he can close this specific real estate deal. Brenda is standing here bragging about his untouchable status, completely blind to the reality of the corporate battlefield. She does not know that Vanguard Holdings, my private company, acquired the Peachtree complex through a proxy buyer 90 days ago. She does not know that the anonymous landlord Jamal has been desperately trying to charm is sitting right across from her. I look down at the temporary custody agreement, demanding I surrender my daughter to a man who is actively embezzling federal funds. I look at the black ink pen resting beside the signature line. Brenda crosses her arms, waiting for my submission. I calmly reach out and pick up the pen. I uncap it. Brenda smiles a wide, triumphant grin, believing she has finally broken my spirit. I look her dead in the eyes, holding the uncapped pen. I do not lower it to the paper. I simply drop the cap onto the table and toss the pen aside. I refuse to sign the mediation agreement. I stand up, smoothing the front of my navy suit, grabbing my leather briefcase. You are right about one thing, Brenda. I say, my voice ringing with the terrifying crystalline clarity. Jamal's entire future does depend on that Peachtree lease tomorrow. Tell him I wish him the absolute best of luck with his negotiations. I turn my back on her shocked expression, walk straight out of the conference room, and prepare to detonate his entire career. I step out of the heavy glass doors of the downtown courthouse, and the thick Atlanta humidity hits my face immediately. I do not look back. I do not check to see if Brenda is following me out to hurl more venomous insults. Her desperate, arrogant words about Jamal being utterly untouchable are still ringing in my ears, but they do not induce a single ounce of fear. They only fuel my absolute focus. She genuinely believes her son is a king about to be crowned. She believes the hospital board is going to hand him the keys to the kingdom tomorrow morning simply because he wears a white coat and flashes a charismatic smile. She has no comprehension of the brutal, unforgiving reality of corporate real estate. My private town car is idling at the curb. The driver immediately steps out and opens the heavy rear door for me. I slide into the pristine leather interior, and the door shuts with a solid, comforting thud, muting the chaotic noise of the city streets. I tap the button on the console, and the tinted privacy partition glides up seamlessly, isolating me in the back cabin. I am completely alone, and I am in total control. I reach into my leather briefcase and bypass my standard cell phone. I pull out my encrypted device, the one I use exclusively for Vanguard Holdings. I dial the direct line for Marcus, my senior director of commercial acquisitions. He answers on the second ring, his voice crisp and professional. He is sitting in a high-rise office across town, completely unaware that he is about to drop a tactical nuclear bomb on the Atlanta Medical Center. Marcus, I say, my voice perfectly level and devoid of any emotional tremor. Pull up the pending commercial lease agreement for the Peachtree Medical Complex expansion, the one scheduled for final signatures tomorrow morning. I hear the rapid clacking of his mechanical keyboard through the speaker. I have it right here, Aaliyah, Marcus replies. The hospital legal team just sent over the final revisions an hour ago. They are incredibly eager to lock this down. Their board of directors has a press conference scheduled for noon tomorrow to announce the new cardiology wing. They are practically begging for our final signature. I look out the tinted window of the town car, watching the towering skyscrapers of the downtown financial district blur past. Jamal has been bragging about this specific expansion project for 6 entire months. He has used it as his primary leverage to bully the hospital board into giving him the permanent chief executive officer title. He sat at our dining room table, drinking expensive bourbon, and boasting to his friends that he was the only man capable of charming the mysterious anonymous landlord who owned the Peachtree lots. He claimed his exceptional negotiation skills were going to cement his legacy in the medical community forever. Freeze the negotiations immediately, I instruct, my tone hardening into absolute corporate steel. Do not counter their revisions. Do not ask for better financial terms. terminate the current progression completely. There is a brief pause on the line. Marcus is a seasoned professional, but even he is caught off guard by the sudden and violent pivot on a multi-million-dollar deal. Terminated entirely, he asks, seeking absolute clarification. Do you want me to draft a standard withdrawal notice? No, I reply. I want you to draft a highly specific notice, and I want you to send it directly to the personal email inboxes of every single member of the hospital board of directors. Bypass their legal team entirely. Inform the board that Vanguard Holdings is placing the entire Peachtree expansion deal under immediate and indefinite administrative review. Marcus types furiously, capturing my exact words. Under review, he repeats. Should I specify a reason? Yes, I say, leaning back against the leather seat. Tell them the landlord has detected severe compliance concerns regarding their current interim hospital director. Inform them that Vanguard Holdings maintains a strict ethical standard for all our corporate tenants, and we refuse to finalize any massive financial agreements while their leadership is compromised. Make it abundantly clear that the deal is dead in the water as long as Jamal remains the face of their institution. Marcus lets out a low whistle, perfectly understanding the catastrophic damage that specific phrasing will inflict. The board members are highly conservative billionaires and community leaders who despise public scandal and financial risk. They will turn on Jamal like starving wolves the second they read that email. I will send it immediately, Aaliyah, Marcus confirms. The board will have this in their hands in less than 5 minutes. I end the call and slip the encrypted phone back into my briefcase. The town car navigates smoothly through the city traffic, heading back toward the St. Regis Hotel. I feel my heartbeat steady and powerful. Jamal tried to corner me in a mediation room and strip away my daughter. He tried to paint me as an unstable, hysterical woman who needed to be locked away and managed. He thought he could weaponize his professional status to crush me. He forgot that I own the battlefield. When I arrive back at the presidential suite, the atmosphere is beautifully serene. Suri is sitting at the dining table, happily painting a watercolor picture alongside the private nanny. I thank the nanny and assure Zuri that Mommy is going to order her favorite pizza for dinner. I walk into the master bedroom, closing the heavy double doors behind me. I set my briefcase on the bed and walk over to the floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over the sprawling city. My standard cell phone rests on the nightstand right where I left it. I pick it up and check the secure messaging application I use to communicate with my private investigator. There is a fresh message waiting for me, sent from an insider contact he cultivated within the hospital administration. The message is brief but incredibly satisfying. Board meeting just abruptly halted. Chairman received an email on his tablet and turned completely white. Jamal was pulled out of a surgical consultation and summoned to the executive boardroom immediately. Complete chaos on the 7th floor. I smile, locking the screen and setting the phone back down. The dominoes are falling exactly as I arranged them. The hospital board does not care about Jamal's charisma or his tailored suits. They care about revenue and expansion. The moment Vanguard Holdings threatened to pull the Peachtree lease, Jamal transformed from their golden boy into a massive corporate liability. They are currently interrogating him, demanding to know what compliance concerns the anonymous landlord is referencing. And Jamal, having absolutely no idea that I am the landlord, is likely sweating through his shirt, trying to formulate a convincing lie. Barely an hour later, the silence of the master bedroom is shattered. My phone begins to vibrate violently on the nightstand. The screen flashes with Jamal's name. I do not answer immediately. I let it ring 3 times, allowing his panic to fester and build. I want his anxiety to reach an absolute fever pitch before he hears my voice. On the 4th ring, I slowly swipe the screen and press the phone to my ear. I do not say a single word. I let him speak first. "What did you do?" he screams through the speaker. His voice is trembling violently with suppressed rage and absolute primal terror. He is hyperventilating, his breath hitching sharply between his words. "What the hell did you tell them, Aaliyah?" I walk over to the window, tracing the edge of the glass with my fingertip. "I told who, Jamal?" I ask, my voice smooth and utterly unbothered. "Do not play games with me," he shouts, his volume rising to a frantic pitch. "The anonymous landlord just pulled the Peachtree expansion. They emailed the entire board of directors and said my compliance is compromised. The board is threatening to fire me before I even get the promotion. They suspended my administrative access pending an internal review. Did you call the property management group? Did you send them some crazy hysterical email making up lies about our marriage to ruin my deal? The sheer arrogance of his assumption is almost comical. Even as his career burns to the ground, he still views me as nothing more than an emotional wife throwing a tantrum. He thinks I found a customer service email on a website and sent a complaint. He cannot even fathom the reality of my power. I did not make up a single lie, Jamal. I reply, my tone dropping to a cold, razor-sharp edge. I simply suggested that you focus heavily on your own federal compliance issues, rather than attempting to fabricate my mental instability in a family courthouse. You are psychotic, he spits, the desperation making his voice crack. You think this makes you win. I will tell the board you are just a bitter ex-wife trying to sabotage me. They will ignore your little email. I am securing my legacy and you are going to lose everything. I pull the phone slightly away from my ear as he continues to rave and threaten. He is a drowning man thrashing wildly in the water, completely unaware that the ocean he is drowning in belongs entirely to me. Good luck in your board meeting, Jamal, I say, cutting smoothly through his frantic shouting. I hear federal auditors are incredibly thorough when examining luxury real estate purchases. I press the red button and disconnect the call, leaving him to choke on his own escalating panic. The first pillar of his empire has officially been demolished. But I am nowhere near finished. Jamal is about to learn that when a desperate man starts flailing, he inevitably drags his enablers down with him. And his sister Tasha is currently standing directly in the drop zone. I drop my encrypted phone onto the plush duvet of the hotel bed and take a long, deep breath. The silence in the master bedroom of the presidential suite is absolute perfection. I can actually feel the seismic shift in the atmosphere. Miles away in his hospital boardroom, Jamal is currently experiencing the total collapse of the artificial kingdom he spent years building on my back. When a narcissist loses their grip on power, they do not just panic, they become viciously erratic. They immediately start cutting off any dead weight that threatens their survival. I know exactly how Jamal operates under pressure. The hospital board is demanding a full accounting of his compliance issues. The legal team is likely freezing his administrative accounts and putting his departmental spending under a microscope. To save his own skin, Jamal has to instantly sever every single undocumented financial tie he has. He has to stop the bleeding. And the largest, most parasitic financial bleed in Jamal's life is not his mistress. It is his sister. Tasha and her husband Greg have funded their entirely fraudulent luxury lifestyle, using Jamal as their personal bank for the better part of a decade. Jamal paid for their country club membership. He covered the mortgage on their sprawling suburban estate whenever Greg's logistics company inevitably failed to meet its quarterly margins. Jamal loved playing the wealthy, benevolent patriarch. He loved having Tasha and Greg completely dependent on his generosity because it guaranteed their absolute loyalty. They worshipped him. They defended his terrible behavior and looked down on me because Jamal paid them to do it. But loyalty bought with stolen funds evaporates the second the vault swings shut. The fallout does not even take 24 hours to reach my doorstep. The next morning, I am sitting at the grand mahogany dining table in the main living area of the suite. The private nanny has already taken Zuri down to the hotel conservatory for a morning art class. I am wearing a floor-length silk robe, pouring myself a cup of Earl Grey from a polished silver tea service. I am reviewing the legal documents my attorney drafted overnight when the heavy double doors of the suite violently rattle. Someone is pounding on the thick wood with closed fists. The sound is frantic and desperate. I do not jump. I do not rush. I take a slow sip of my hot tea, letting the fragrant steam warm my face. I press a button on the wall console to activate the exterior hallway camera. Tasha is standing outside my door. She looks absolutely nothing like the arrogant designer-clad woman who tried to intimidate me in the school parking lot yesterday afternoon. Her hair is disheveled. She is wearing yesterday's makeup smeared darkly under her eyes. She is physically shaking, clutching her expensive handbag against her chest like a life preserver. The hotel security guard is standing 2 feet behind her, speaking into his radio, ready to physically remove her from the VIP floor. I press the intercom button. Let her in, I instruct the guard. The heavy doors swing open and Tasha practically falls into the foyer of the suite. She is breathing heavily, her eyes darting around the opulent room, before finally locking onto me, sitting calmly at the dining table. The stark contrast between my absolute tranquility and her manic desperation hangs heavily in the air. I do not offer her a seat. I do not ask her how she got past the lobby desk. I simply set my teacup down on its matching saucer and wait for her to speak. Alia, you have to fix this. Tasha blurts out, her voice cracking with sheer panic. You have to call Jamal right now and tell him to turn the accounts back on. He has completely lost his mind. He called Greg at midnight screaming about a federal audit and a canceled lease. He completely severed the corporate wire transfers. We check our accounts this morning and everything is gone. The automatic payments bounced. I fold my hands elegantly on the table, maintaining unbroken eye contact. And why exactly is that my problem, Tasha? Because we are going to lose everything, she cries, stepping further into the room. She throws her hands up, gesturing wildly. Greg's commercial trucks are being repossessed tomorrow morning. The creditors called us at dawn. Without Jamal's monthly transfer, we cannot make the fleet payments. We cannot make payroll. The bank is going to foreclose on our house by the end of the week. You need to stop punishing my brother over a stupid little affair and fix your marriage. We are family, Aaliyah. You cannot just let our entire lives fall apart because you threw a temper tantrum. The absolute unmitigated audacity of this woman is breathtaking. Less than 24 hours ago, she helped her white husband corner me in a school parking lot. She stood there and proudly defended Jamal's infidelity. She demanded that I swallow my pride and accept extreme disrespect just to maintain the illusion of black excellence. She told me I was destroying Jamal's focus. Now her fraudulent lifestyle is actively burning to the ground, and she has the nerve to burst into my sanctuary and demand I submit to a cheating embezzler just so she can keep her country club membership. She is invoking the concept of family loyalty after spending 7 years treating me like a disposable accessory. I reach forward and pick up the silver teapot. I pour a splash of hot water into my cup, moving with deliberate, agonizing slowness. I want her to feel the weight of my silence. I want her to hear the delicate clink of the porcelain. I want her to realize that her frantic tears hold absolutely zero currency in this room. You came into this suite demanding that I fix your life, I say, my voice dropping to a low, steady rhythm. You are begging me to salvage a marriage to a man who bought his mistress $1 million penthouse using a fraudulent shell company. A man who filed emergency custody papers to rip my daughter away from me just to protect his public image. You want me to sacrifice my peace, my dignity, and my child's safety, so your incompetent husband can keep pretending he knows how to run a logistics business. Tasha shakes her head, tears finally spilling over her eyelashes and cutting tracks through her ruined makeup. You do not understand, Aaliyah. Jamal is our only lifeline. Greg is going to be ruined. The repo men are literally staging at the depot right now. If they take the trucks, the business is dead. If the business dies, we lose the house. We will have absolutely nothing. You have to talk some sense into him. You have to make him release the funds. I look at her, taking in the pathetic reality of her existence. She built her entire identity around being the sister of a powerful, wealthy doctor. She looked down on everyone around her, while secretly surviving on financial handouts. She thought she was untouchable by association. I cannot talk to Jamal, Tasha. I say, my voice perfectly calm and devoid of any human sympathy. Even if I wanted to, which I assure you I do not, Jamal has no money left to give you. The hospital board is currently dissecting every single grant account he managed. The federal authorities will be freezing his personal assets by the end of the business day. The bank of Jamal is permanently closed. Tasha lets out a ragged sob, covering her mouth with her trembling hand. Her knees buckle slightly as the reality of her impending bankruptcy crashes down on her shoulders. No, she whispers. No, 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 we cannot lose the house. Please, Aaliyah, you have money. Your consulting firm makes good money. You could float Greg a temporary loan. Just until Jamal clears up this misunderstanding with the board, just to stop the repossession tomorrow. She is actually begging me for a loan. The same woman who laughed in my face yesterday when I threatened Greg's business. The sheer poetry of this moment is almost too delicious to consume all at once. I reach into my leather briefcase resting on the chair beside me. I pull out a thick stack of stapled legal documents printed on heavy premium paper. I set the documents directly on the mahogany table right next to my teacup. I cannot float. Greg a temporary loan. Tasha, I state firmly, leaning forward and resting my forearms on the table. But I can absolutely talk to the commercial holding company that is currently foreclosing on your husband's failing business. I can talk to the primary creditor who bought Greg's massive commercial debt from Jamal 12 months ago. Tasha stops crying. She lowers her hand from her mouth, staring at the legal documents resting on the table. A profound, horrible confusion washes over her face. "What are you talking about?" she asks, her voice trembling. "Greg said Jamal would never sell our debt. Greg said Jamal holds the paper. Greg is a mediocre man who refuses to read the fine print," I reply, sliding the legal documents across the smooth wood until they rest exactly at the edge of the table right in front of Tasha. "And you are a woman who blindly trusted a brother who was actively stealing from cancer patients to fund his mistress. I told you both yesterday in that parking lot to keep my name out of your mouths before I called in the marker on that loan. You laughed at me. You thought I was bluffing." Tasha slowly reaches out with a shaking hand. She picks up the thick stack of papers. It is the official notification of default and immediate asset seizure. She flips to the second page, her eyes scanning the bold legal text. She sees the name of the commercial holding company that acquired the debt, Vanguard Holdings. Then she flips to the final page where the authorized signature of the majority shareholder is printed in stark black ink. My name is printed right there. Tasha drops the papers as if they are actively on fire. The documents scatter across the floor, landing near her designer shoes. She looks up at me, her eyes wide with a terror so pure it is almost blinding. "In fact, Tasha," I continue, picking up my teacup and taking a slow, satisfying sip. "I am the holding company. I own Vanguard Holdings. I own the debt on Greg's commercial trucks. I own the lien on your sprawling suburban house. And I am the anonymous landlord who just terminated the Peachtree Medical Complex lease, effectively destroying your brother's entire career." I do not break eye contact. I watch the color drain entirely from her face. "Greg told me to swallow my pride yesterday," I say, my voice dropping to a lethal whisper. "I strongly suggest you both learn how to swallow a bankruptcy filing. You have 24 hours to clear your personal belongings out of the depot before my asset recovery team locks the gates. Now get out of my suite." Tasha stands frozen in the center of my hotel suite. Her eyes locked on the bold black ink of my signature at the bottom of the default notice. The heavy, oppressive silence in the room is broken only by the ragged, shallow breaths escaping her chest. I watch the precise moment her entire false reality shatters. The unearned arrogance, the designer-clad entitlement, the smug superiority she carried into my space just minutes ago completely evaporates. She is no longer the untouchable sister of a powerful hospital director. She is a woman staring down the barrel of total financial ruin, and I am the one holding the trigger. "You own Vanguard Holdings," she whispers, her voice trembling so violently it barely fills the space between us. "You own the debt on Greg's company." I pick up my porcelain teacup and take another slow, deliberate sip. I do not nod. I do not offer a verbal confirmation. The legal documents resting on the mahogany table speak entirely for themselves. "Alia, you cannot do this!" Tasha cries out, her hands flying to her face. She takes a desperate step forward, her expensive high heels sinking into the plush carpet. "You cannot just foreclose on us. Greg has been working day and night to keep those trucks on the road. We have a mortgage. We have car payments. If you seize the business assets today, the bank will take our house by the end of the month. We will be out on the street. You are talking about destroying our entire lives over a fight with my brother." I set my teacup down. The delicate clink of the porcelain sounds like a gavel dropping in an empty courtroom. "I am not destroying your life, Tasha," I say, my voice perfectly level. "Your husband destroyed his own business through sheer incompetence. Jamal simply delayed the inevitable by throwing money at a sinking ship. I am just a commercial creditor officially closing a toxic account. It is strictly business. Tasha shakes her head frantically, tears finally spilling over her lashes and ruining her carefully applied makeup. It is not just business, Aaliyah, and you know it. We are family. She reaches across the table, her hands grasping at the empty air between us. You cannot do this to your own people. We are a black family. We have to stick together against a system that wants to see us fail. You know how hard Jamal has worked to build a legacy for us. You know how hard we have all fought to establish ourselves. You cannot use your money to tear down your own family. We are supposed to protect each other. The sheer breathtaking audacity of her invoking black family loyalty makes a cold, sharp laugh escape my throat. She is actually trying to weaponize cultural solidarity to save her white husband's failing business after spending nearly a decade actively participating in my emotional destruction. Do not ever dare to lecture me about family loyalty. Tasha, I state, standing up slowly from my chair. I tower over her, letting the full weight of my presence press down on her shrinking frame. Where was this profound family loyalty last Thanksgiving? I spent 3 days cooking for 20 people, while you sat at the head of my dining table sipping expensive wine. I sat right across from you when Jamal mocked my legal career in front of the entire extended family. He called my profession cute. I told everyone I just pushed paper around a desk while he was out saving the world. And what did you do, Tasha? She shrinks back, her eyes darting toward the door as if looking for an escape route. I did not mean anything by it, she stammers. We were just joking around. You laughed, I say, cutting through her pathetic excuse. You laughed loudly and you raised your glass to toast him. You cheered on his blatant disrespect because it made you feel powerful by association. You spent the last 7 years mocking my career, treating me like a charity case. Your brother took pity on all while you were secretly begging him to pay your mortgage. You helped him hide his financial messes. You knew exactly how Greg was bleeding Jamal dry, and you never once thought about how that affected me or my daughter. Alia, please, Tasha, sobs, her hands dropping to her sides in total defeat. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I was just trying to keep my head above water. Greg has been under so much stress. You know how he gets. I know exactly how Greg gets. I reply, my voice turning into a lethal whisper. I know that less than 24 hours ago, your mediocre husband had the nerve to corner me in a school parking lot. He leaned on my car window and told me to swallow my pride. He told me to stand by a man who was actively undressing his 26-year-old assistant in a hospital office. He tried to mandate my submission because he was terrified his personal automated teller machine was going to shut down. Tasha closes her eyes, fresh tears streaming down her face. She knows she has absolutely no defense. She knows she played a dangerous game and lost everything. I reach into the inner pocket of my tailored blazer and pull out a solid gold fountain pen. I uncap it with a smooth, practiced motion. I reach down to the stack of legal documents resting on the mahogany table. I pull the final foreclosure initiation form directly toward me. Alia, please, I am begging you! Tasha screams, lunging forward and grabbing the edge of the table. I will do anything. I will talk to Jamal. I will make him drop the custody case. I will make him give you whatever you want in the divorce. Just give us 30 days to find another loan. Please. I look down at the signature line. I place the gold nib of the pen against the heavy paper. Greg told me to swallow my pride yesterday. I say, my voice ringing with absolute terrifying clarity. I suggest you both learn how to swallow a bankruptcy filing. I sign my name with swift, aggressive strokes. The ink glides across the page, legally sealing the immediate and total destruction of her husband's logistics company. The asset seizure is now officially authorized. By tomorrow morning, the repo trucks will be rolling into their commercial lot to chain the gates shut. I cap the pen and toss it onto the table. It lands right next to the signed foreclosure order. Tasha stares at my signature. A ragged, guttural sob tears out of her throat. It is the sound of a woman watching her entire fraudulent reality burn to ashes. She does not try to argue anymore. She does not try to bargain. She turns around and practically runs toward the heavy double doors of the suite. She pushes them open and flees down the hotel corridor, sobbing uncontrollably. The heavy doors swing shut behind her with a satisfying finalized thud. I do not watch her go. I do not feel a single ounce of remorse or guilt. I simply reach down, gather the signed legal documents, and slide them back into my leather briefcase. One parasite has been successfully detached and eliminated from the host. I do not miss a beat. The adrenaline pumping through my veins is cold and highly calculated. I immediately pivot to my next target. I walk over to the sleek glass desk situated in the corner of the living area. I open my encrypted laptop and wake the screen. It is time to deal with Chloe. The arrogant, entitled 26-year-old assistant thought she had secured a permanent luxury lifestyle. She thought sitting in a coffee shop and bragging about $1 million penthouse was a triumphant victory lap. She is completely unaware that she just handed me a loaded federal weapon. I open my secure email server and begin attaching the high-resolution audio file. I am preparing to send a catastrophic shockwave directly into the Human Resources Department of the Atlanta Medical Center. The heavy hotel suite, doors click shut behind my sister-in-law, leaving a profound and absolute silence in her wake. I do not waste a single second feeling sorry for a woman who spent the last 7 years cheering for my downfall. I turn my back to the foyer and walk straight to the sleek glass desk positioned in the corner of the living area. I wake my encrypted laptop and type in my master password. It is time to deal with Chloe. The arrogant, entitled 26-year-old assistant thought she had secured a permanent luxury lifestyle. She thought sitting in that high-end coffee shop and bragging to me about $1 million penthouse was a triumphant victory lap. She genuinely believed she was the beautiful, youthful upgrade, and I was just the bitter, aging wife being pushed out the door. She is completely unaware that she just handed me a loaded federal weapon, and I am about to pull the trigger. I log into my secure cloud server and download the pristine audio file I captured under the table. I press play and listen to it one more time, just to ensure the quality is absolute perfection. Chloe's voice echoes through the suite of speakers, bragging loudly about the stolen property and detailing exactly how Jamal controls all the hidden hospital assets to provide for her. It is the sound of pure, unadulterated ignorance. I open my secure encrypted email client and create a new draft. I do not send this to a generic customer service inbox. I manually enter the direct email addresses of the Chief Compliance Officer, the Head of Human Resources, the Chief Financial Officer, and every single member of the hospital board of directors. I want maximum visibility. I want zero chance for Jamal to intercept this message or use his authority to bury the investigation. I attach the audio file. Next, I attach the comprehensive forensic report my accountant Kendra prepared. The 50-page document includes the fraudulent vendor invoices, the offshore bank routing numbers, and the property deed for the luxury high-rise. I make absolutely sure the forged signature page is highlighted. I type a brief, highly professional message. I state that, as a concerned citizen, I am providing irrefutable evidence of massive federal grant embezzlement orchestrated by the interim hospital director and his executive assistant. I recommend an immediate internal audit and rapid notification of federal authorities to avoid institutional liability. I read the email twice. I press send. The digital payload launches into the corporate ether. I close the laptop and walk over to the minibar to pour myself a glass of sparkling water. I pick up my secondary phone and check my secure messaging application. My private investigator Calvin has a highly reliable contact inside the hospital administration. Her name is Renee. She is a senior charge nurse who has utterly despised Jamal ever since he slashed the nursing staff overtime budget to fund his own executive department renovations. I text Renee and tell her to keep her eyes firmly locked on the 7th floor executive suite. Exactly 42 minutes later, my phone buzzes against the marble countertop. Renee sends a rapid-fire series of text messages. The situation is unfolding with magnificent speed. Human Resources just walked into the executive suite, Renee writes. They have 2 armed hospital security guards with them. They bypassed Jamal's office and went straight to Chloe's desk. They are making her pack her personal belongings into a cardboard box. She is officially suspended pending a full compliance and criminal investigation. I can perfectly picture the scene unfolding in real time. Chloe is completely out of her depth. She thought she was playing a fun, glamorous game of corporate mistress. She thought she was untouchable because she was sleeping with the boss. Now she is surrounded by armed guards facing imminent federal prison time for wire fraud and receiving stolen property. The luxurious fantasy shatters and raw panic sets in. Renee sends another update. Chloe is hyperventilating. She is refusing to leave the building without talking to Jamal. She actually breaks away from the security guards and throws herself against Jamal's heavy mahogany office door. She bursts inside, demanding that he fix the situation. She demands that he tell Human Resources the truth about the private consulting company and the penthouse. She expects her powerful, successful lover to shield her from the consequences. But Chloe severely underestimates the survival instincts of a cornered narcissist. Jamal is currently watching his entire empire burn to the ground. His multi-million-dollar Peachtree lease just vanished into thin air. The board is already reviewing his credentials and questioning his competence. Now Human Resources is holding hard audio evidence of his federal crimes. He does exactly what I knew he would do. He sacrifices the mistress to save the king. He looks at the Human Resources director standing in his doorway and completely denies everything. He claims he has absolutely no idea what Chloe is talking about. He states that Chloe had high-level administrative access to his computer and his secure passwords. He tells them she must have manipulated the grant accounts entirely on her own to fund her lavish lifestyle. He looks the woman he was kissing yesterday right in the eye and throws her directly under a speeding bus. Renee texts again. The words on the screen paint a picture of absolute chaos. Chloe is losing her mind, Renee types. She is screaming that Jamal bought the penthouse for her. Jamal tells security to remove this delusional woman from his hospital immediately. The security guards grab her by the arms and physically drag her out of the executive suite. They force her into the elevator to take her down to the main lobby. Jamal follows them down, wanting to do damage control and ensure she actually leaves the premises without talking to any board members. He is desperately trying to protect his pristine image, but he just lit a match in a room full of gasoline. My phone vibrates heavily in my hand with a new incoming message from Renee. It is not text. It is a live video file. I tap the screen to play the footage. The camera is pointed at the massive glass atrium of the hospital main lobby. It is the middle of the afternoon, and the lobby is absolutely packed with patients, doctors, nurses, and administrative staff. Everyone has stopped what they are doing. They are all watching the massive spectacle unfolding by the revolving doors. Chloe is standing in the center of the lobby, clutching her cardboard box of desk supplies. Her expensive designer suit is severely rumpled. Her perfectly styled hair is wild and messy, falling across her face. She is sobbing hysterically and screaming at the top of her lungs. Jamal is standing 5 feet away from her, surrounded by the 2 security guards trying to use his calm, authoritative doctor voice to manage the situation. It is failing miserably. "You promised me," Chloe screams, her voice echoing sharply off the high glass ceilings. "You said you were leaving your wife for me. You said the penthouse was ours. You stole that money, Jamal. You told me exactly how you routed the federal grants to buy my silence. Do not stand there and act like you do not know me." Jamal's face contorts with absolute rage. His fake professional calm shatters entirely. The polished, dignified mask he wears for the public melts away, revealing the vicious, arrogant man hiding underneath. He steps forward, pointing a finger directly in her face, his posture aggressive and threatening. "Stop lying, you crazy woman," he shouts back, his voice booming through the crowded lobby, destroying any remaining shred of his dignity. "I should have never hired you. You are nothing but a gold-digging mistake." The harsh, cruel words hang heavily in the air. The lobby is dead silent for a fraction of a second. Chloe stops crying. The profound betrayal registers on her face. She realizes that she gave up her career, her reputation, and her freedom for a man who views her as entirely disposable. Chloe drops her cardboard box. Pens, notebooks, and framed photos scatter loudly across the polished marble floor. She lunges forward, closing the physical distance between them in a split second. Before the security guards can even react, she raises her right hand and slaps Jamal violently across the face. The sharp, resounding crack echoes through the entire atrium. Jamal staggers backward, clutching his cheek in absolute shock. The surrounding crowd gasps loudly. I can see at least a dozen people in the background of the video with their cell phones out, actively recording the entire physical altercation. The video cuts out, ending abruptly. I set my phone down on the glass desk. A slow, genuine smile spreads across my face. Jamal thought he could replace me with a younger model and discard me like trash. Instead, his new model just publicly humiliated him, exposed his crimes, and physically assaulted him in the middle of his own hospital. His medical career is completely destroyed. His flawless public reputation is in ashes. The board of directors will see this video before the sun goes down. But the absolute best part is that I have not even put on my formal gown yet. The real execution is scheduled for this weekend. I stand in the center of the master bathroom inside the presidential suite, observing my reflection in the floor-to-ceiling mirrors. I am wearing a custom-tailored emerald green silk gown that drapes over my curves like liquid armor. The color is deliberate. It projects absolute calm, unwavering wealth, and lethal precision. My phone vibrates violently against the cool marble countertop. I do not rush to pick it up. I finish clasping a minimalist diamond tennis bracelet around my wrist before finally glancing at the illuminated screen. It is a text message from Jamal. His world is currently crumbling into fine dust, but the hospital board of directors gave him one final desperate lifeline. They demanded he fix the frozen Peachtree lease issue tonight at the annual hospital charity gala. They informed him that the anonymous landlord had agreed to send a proxy representative to the event to hear his final pitch. Jamal genuinely believes he can charm his way out of this corporate execution. He believes he can smile, shake hands, and manipulate this mysterious billionaire landlord, just like he manipulates everyone else in his life. The sheer magnitude of his delusion radiates through the text message he just sent me. I am securing my legacy tonight at the gala. Jamal writes his words dripping with unearned arrogance. Once I have the chief executive officer title and the Peachtree lease signed, I have the power to completely destroy you in court. You and Zuri will be left with absolutely nothing. You played a stupid game, Aaliyah, and you lost. I read the text twice. He is threatening to leave me and my daughter destitute while he is actively drowning in a financial ocean that I personally own. He thinks I am sitting in this hotel room terrified of his imminent promotion. I reach out and tap the screen. I reply with a single thumbs-up emoji. I lock the device and drop it into my matching emerald clutch. It is time to burn his entire world straight down to the bedrock. My private driver navigates the armored town car through the downtown traffic, pulling smoothly into the circular driveway of the grand ballroom venue. The exterior of the building is swarming with regional elites, wealthy medical donors, and local politicians. Flashbulbs illuminate the warm evening air as photographers capture the arrivals of Atlanta's highest society members. The valet rushes forward to open my door. I step out into the flash of the cameras, my posture radiating absolute untouchable authority. I glide through the massive gilded doors and enter the grand ballroom. The space is a magnificent display of corporate wealth, featuring towering floral centerpieces, crystal chandeliers, and waiters circulating with silver trays of expensive champagne. I scan the crowded room and spot Jamal almost immediately. He is standing near the front of the room by the VIP tables, attempting to work the crowd. He is wearing a tailored velvet tuxedo, but the crisp professional image is completely failing. I can see the sheen of nervous sweat on his forehead from 50 feet away. He is shifting his weight, anxiously checking his watch every 10 seconds, desperately waiting for the anonymous landlord's representative to arrive so he can beg for his professional life. Trailing right behind him, like a devoted guard dog, is his mother, Brenda. She is holding a glass of champagne and speaking loudly to a group of elderly board members, boasting about her son's imminent promotion. She is wearing a heavily sequined gown, desperately trying to project the image of a regal matriarch. I take a slow, deliberate step forward, allowing the emerald silk of my gown to catch the light. I walk purposefully toward the center of the ballroom. It only takes 30 seconds for Brenda to spot me. Her boastful smile instantly vanishes, replaced by a mask of pure, unadulterated hostility. She excuses herself from the board members and marches aggressively toward the entrance, determined to intercept me before I can get anywhere near her golden child. She steps directly into my path, blocking my forward momentum. Her chest heaves with indignant rage, and she looks me up and down with absolute disgust. "What the hell do you think you are doing here?" Brenda hisses, her voice dropping to a harsh, venomous whisper so the nearby donors do not overhear. You have some nerve showing your face at this event after what you pulled in the mediation room. I look down at her, maintaining perfect, unbroken eye contact. I do not say a single word, I simply let her stew in her own aggressive panic. Security, Brenda snaps, raising her hand to flag down two large guards standing near the ballroom entrance. My soon-to-be ex-daughter-in-law is definitely not on the guest list tonight. Escort her out of this building immediately before she embarrasses Jamal and ruins this gala. She is an uninvited disruption. The two security guards step forward, their faces stern and professional. They reach out, preparing to politely but firmly grab my arms and guide me back toward the valet stand. Brenda crosses her arms over her sequined chest, a smug, triumphant smirk spreading across her face. She genuinely believes she has won. She thinks she has successfully protected her son's fragile kingdom from the bitter, scorned wife. Before the security guards can even graze the fabric of my gown, a deep, commanding voice slices straight through the tense atmosphere. Stop right there. Step away from her immediately. The security guards freeze, dropping their hands and stepping back instantly. I look past Brenda to see Chairman Sterling striding purposefully toward us. He is the head of the hospital board of directors, a billionaire philanthropist who holds Jamal's entire medical career in the palm of his hand. Chairman Sterling pushes past the bewildered security guards and walks directly up to me. He completely ignores Brenda, acting as if she is nothing more than a minor obstacle in the room. Chairman Sterling extends his hand toward me, a warm, genuine smile breaking across his distinguished face. Brenda, please step aside, Chairman Sterling says, his tone leaving absolutely no room for debate. We are incredibly honored to have the founder and chief executive officer of Vanguard Holdings here tonight. The air is instantly sucked out of the surrounding space. Brenda stumbles backward, her mouth falling open in a silent, grotesque gasp. She looks from the chairman to me and back again, her brain completely short-circuiting as it tries to process the impossible words she just heard. I accept the chairman's handshake, smiling graciously. Thank you for the invitation, Chairman Sterling. I say, my voice perfectly modulated and carrying effortlessly over the surrounding ambient noise. 10 feet away, Jamal turns around, having heard the chairman's booming voice. He looks at me, standing next to the most powerful man in the hospital network. He looks at the chairman, shaking my hand with profound respect. Then the reality of the chairman's words crashes into his skull with the force of a speeding freight train. The founder and CEO of Vanguard Holdings, the anonymous landlord who purchased the Peachtree Medical Complex, the corporate entity that froze his multi-million-dollar lease and placed his entire career under administrative review due to severe compliance concerns. The crystal champagne flute slips from Jamal's trembling fingers. It hits the polished marble floor and shatters into 100 glittering pieces. The sharp sound of breaking glass echoes sharply, cutting through the polite chatter of the wealthy donors. Jamal stares at me, the blood draining completely from his face, leaving him looking like a terrified ghost trapped inside a velvet tuxedo. The realization that he has been sleeping next to the billionaire landlord he has been desperately begging for a meeting with utterly destroys his mind in real time. Chairman Sterling gestures toward the front of the ballroom, guiding me away from the paralyzed forms of my husband and my mother-in-law. Please come with me, Aaliyah, the chairman says respectfully. The board is incredibly eager to hear your final decision regarding the Peachtree expansion property. I walk alongside the chairman, the emerald silk of my gown flowing behind me. The crowd naturally parts for us, responding to the undeniable gravitational pull of pure corporate power. Whispers ripple through the ballroom as the regional elites try to identify the woman receiving such high-level deference from the board. I keep my eyes locked straight ahead, refusing to even glance at Jamal as I pass him. I can feel the heat of his sheer visceral panic radiating off his sweating body. The chairman guides me directly up the short stairs to the main stage overlooking the entire grand ballroom. He steps up to the silver podium and taps the microphone. A sharp, high-pitched whine silences the room completely. Hundreds of wealthy donors, doctors, and politicians turn their attention to the stage. Jamal is standing perfectly still in the very front row, his hands clenching into tight, white-knuckled fists. He is trapped. He cannot run away without looking guilty, and he cannot speak without interrupting his boss. Ladies and gentlemen, Chairman Sterling announces, his voice echoing through the massive speakers. We have a very special guest with us tonight. As you all know, the future of our hospital relies heavily on our upcoming facility expansions. Tonight, the head of Vanguard Holdings has agreed to say a few words regarding the highly anticipated Peachtree Medical Complex lease. The chairman steps back, gesturing for me to take the podium. The applause is polite and expectant. I step up to the microphone, resting my hands lightly on the edges of the wooden stand. I look out over the sea of expectant faces. I look directly down at Jamal, who is actively hyperventilating in the front row, his chest heaving under his expensive suit. Good evening, I say, projecting my voice with calm, absolute, legally sound authority. Vanguard Holdings has always prioritized community development and innovative medical infrastructure. We specialize in building spaces that allow brilliant medical minds to heal the public. However, Vanguard Holdings also requires absolute, unshakable integrity from its commercial partners. A heavy, confused silence settles over the room. The board members seated at the front tables exchange uncertain glances. I do not break my eye contact with Jamal. We conduct rigorous internal audits before finalizing any commercial lease agreements. I continue, my voice slicing through the quiet room with surgical precision. And unfortunately, we cannot in good conscience sign a multi-million-dollar development lease with a hospital director who is currently under active federal investigation for aggressively embezzling hospital grant funds. The entire ballroom erupts in a massive, synchronized gasp. The sound is deafening. Several board members stand up from their chairs in sheer shock. Jamal's eyes widen to impossible proportions, his mouth opening in a silent scream of absolute terror. I do not stop. I press my foot firmly onto the gas pedal and drive the tank straight over his reputation. We have detected massive financial anomalies. I state clearly, ensuring the microphone picks up every single syllable. Funds intended for community health outreach were deliberately routed through a fraudulent corporate shell company to finance a luxury downtown penthouse for his former administrative assistant. Vanguard Holdings refuses to do business with compromised leadership. Therefore, the Peachtree Medical Complex lease is officially and permanently terminated. I raise my right hand and give a sharp, distinct signal to the back of the room. My private investigator and my forensic accountant step out from the shadows of the exit doors. They are holding thick, heavy leather-bound portfolios. They walk purposefully down the center aisle, stepping directly up to the VIP tables reserved for the hospital board of directors. They place a thick portfolio perfectly in front of every single board member. The portfolios contain the complete forensic audit, the offshore routing numbers, the property deed featuring the forged signature, and a printed transcript of the audio recording, where Chloe brags about the entire embezzlement scheme. The sound of heavy leather hitting the linen tablecloths echoes like gunshots. Jamal completely loses his mind. The carefully constructed facade of the calm, brilliant doctor shatters into a million jagged pieces. He snaps. He lunges forward, throwing himself toward the edge of the stage, screaming at the top of his lungs. She is lying, he roars, his face twisting into a mask of pure feral desperation. She is an insane, bitter woman making up lies to ruin me because I am divorcing her. Do not read those files, it is all fabricated garbage. Chairman Sterling ignores the screaming man, throwing a violent tantrum at the foot of the stage. The chairman flips open the leather portfolio resting on his table. He reads the very first page of the forensic audit, outlining the exact dates and amounts of the stolen federal grant money. He looks at the high-resolution photograph of the luxury penthouse. He looks at the fraudulent shell company registration. The chairman slowly raises his head and looks down at Jamal. The expression on the older man's face is one of pure, unadulterated disgust. It is the look of a man staring at a cockroach that just crawled across his dinner plate. Chairman Sterling does not say a word to Jamal. He simply raises his hand and gestures toward the dark wings of the stage. Two fully uniformed Atlanta police officers step out from the shadows, their hands resting heavily on their utility belts. They walk directly down the stage stairs, heading straight for the hospital director, who just realized his entire life is officially over. The two uniformed officers do not hesitate for a single second. They step out from the shadows of the ballroom wings and flank Jamal, grasping his arms with a firm, professional grip, that completely shatters his fragile illusion of power. The grand ballroom descends into a state of absolute chaos. Wealthy hospital donors are jumping out of their seats, grabbing their expensive coats and whispering frantically to their spouses. The chairman of the board looks down at Jamal from the stage and officially revokes his employment, his hospital privileges, and his security clearance in one swift, devastating sentence. Jamal tries to physically resist dragging his expensive leather shoes against the polished marble floor and begging the officers to let him explain the audit. They read him his Miranda rights instead. The sound of the police warning echoing through a room filled with Atlanta elite is the absolute sweetest music I have ever heard. Across the chaotic room, Brenda realizes her golden ticket is currently being escorted out the main entrance in handcuffs. She resorts to her final pathetic theatrical play. She presses the back of her hand to her forehead, lets out a dramatic piercing wail, and collapses directly onto the carpet, expecting the crowd to immediately rush to her aid. She expects the billionaire philanthropist to kneel beside her and offer comfort. But she is no longer the mother of the incoming chief executive officer. She is the mother of a disgraced federally indicted embezzler. The wealthy patrons simply step right over her prone body, carefully lifting the hems of their designer gowns so they do not brush against her sequined dress as they head for the exit. I walk down the stage steps, passing right by her fake fainting spell, and step out into the cool evening air, leaving them all to burn in the fire they started. Fast forward exactly 2 weeks, and the legal slaughter is magnificent. The divorce proceedings are not a negotiation. They are a televised massacre. Chloe, facing 30 years in federal prison for wire fraud and receiving stolen property, realizes her youth and beauty will not survive a medium security facility. She flips instantly. She turns state's witness against Jamal, signing a comprehensive plea deal that outlines every single detail of his embezzlement scheme. She hands the federal prosecutors his personal text messages, his banking passwords, and the keys to the luxury penthouse. Jamal is left entirely defenseless, isolated in a holding cell, while his former mistress systematically dismantles his defense strategy to save her own skin. The collateral damage raining down on his family is equally beautiful. Tasha and Greg officially file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy after my asset recovery team chains the gates of their logistics depot shut. Greg's commercial delivery trucks are auctioned off to the highest bidder, leaving him entirely unemployed and heavily in debt. Tasha is forced to sell her designer handbags online just to keep their lights on before the bank formally forecloses on their sprawling suburban estate. Brenda is evicted from the luxury condo Jamal was secretly subsidizing for her. She is forced to downsize to a tiny one-bedroom apartment on the extreme outskirts of the city. Her exclusive country club memberships are revoked, and her high society friends permanently block her phone number. Her social standing is completely and irreparably ruined. The true kill shot happens during our final civil deposition. We are sitting in a sterile high-rise conference room, surrounded by aggressive litigators. Jamal is wearing a cheap off-the-rack suit issued by his defense team. He has been officially stripped of his medical administrative licenses, and he is facing imminent federal prison time. He looks across the long wooden table at me, his eyes red and sunken into his face. He breaks down completely, shedding the arrogant persona he wore for the last 10 years. He pushes his pride aside and begs me for mercy. He pleads with me to drop the civil damages so he can afford a better criminal defense attorney. Then he asks to see Zuri. He claims he just wants to hold his little girl one last time before he goes away. He tries to play the heartbroken, devoted father one final time, hoping to manipulate my maternal empathy. I do not say a word. I do not show a single ounce of pity. I reach into my leather briefcase and pull out a single crisp sheet of paper. I slide it smoothly across the large conference table until it rests directly in front of him. It is a certified printed transcript of the audio recording from his office on the day of her 7th birthday. I used a bright yellow marker to highlight his exact words. I watch his eyes scan the paper, reading the exact sentence he whispered to his mistress while I was standing outside his door holding a cake. I guess you do not have to play the good father anymore, Jamal, I say, my voice carrying the weight of absolute finality. You will not be seeing her. Jamal stares at his own printed words, and the last remaining fragment of his massive ego shatters into dust. He drops his head into his hands and begins to sob uncontrollably. The sound is pathetic and hollow, echoing off the glass walls of the deposition room. His high-priced defense attorney places a hand on his shoulder and leans in to whisper a harsh, undeniable truth into his ear. The attorney advises him to sign away all of his parental rights immediately. The lawyer explains that if we take this audio recording and the federal embezzlement charges in front of a family court judge, Jamal will not just lose custody. He will face severe punitive damages and a public character assassination that will completely eliminate any chance he has at securing a lenient federal plea deal. Jamal has absolutely no leverage left. He reaches for his pen with a shaking hand and signs his name on the dotted line, surrendering every legal claim to our daughter. I secure sole legal and physical custody of Zuri before the lunch hour is over. She is entirely protected from his toxic influence forever. The divorce is finalized with record speed. Jamal surrenders any claim to spousal support or shared marital assets just to keep me from pursuing further civil litigation against him. My elite legal team ensures that the corporate veil of Vanguard Holdings remains absolutely impenetrable. Every single property I acquired, every commercial lease I manage, and every dollar of my real estate empire is protected 100% from the fallout of his federal crimes. His massive debt belongs to him alone. My vast wealth belongs entirely to me and my daughter. Months pass, and the chaotic noise of Atlanta fades into a distant memory. The heavy, oppressive humidity of the city is replaced by the crisp, salty breeze of the Caribbean Sea. The script of my old life is completely shredded, and the new reality I built is breathtaking. I am sitting under a large white canvas umbrella on a pristine, sun-drenched private beach. The sand is soft and powdery white, stretching out to meet the vibrant turquoise water. A few yards away, Suri is laughing brightly. She is sitting in the shallow water, using a bright yellow plastic bucket to build a massive sandcastle. She is thriving. She is completely unbothered by the storms that raged months ago. She is deeply loved, and she knows it. I take a slow sip of my chilled, sparkling water, feeling the condensation on the outside of the glass. I look out at the endless horizon where the blue sky meets the ocean. I feel a profound, absolute peace settling into my bones. I shed the dead weight of a deeply toxic family. I destroyed the man who tried to use me as a human shield. I protected my child, and I secured an unbreakable empire. I smile, letting the warm island breeze wash over me, realizing the greatest revenge was not just destroying his world, it was protecting mine. The most profound lesson from Jada's journey is that true power does not roar, it operates in calculated silence. When faced with betrayal from a spouse and toxic family members who weaponize their status to diminish your worth, your greatest defense is your independence. You do not need to argue with people committed to misunderstanding you. Instead, channel your grief into building an unbreakable foundation. Blood relations do not excuse abuse, and walking away from a destructive environment is not a failure, it is the ultimate victory. Protect your peace, secure your empire, and let their own arrogance engineer their absolute downfall. Drop a comment below to share how you successfully walked away from a toxic environment to build your own unstoppable empire.